Well, today's segment, we are going to be talking about hexes and curses. Ashley?
So, Hexes Curses, we always get the question of what about it? How often does it come about? How to get one off of me? And then, of course, you have the dark atmosphere of, oh gosh, I want to put one on somebody. So, what do I need to do this? So, it's always a fun subject because that seems to be like the dark thing that you got to go for, like that appeals to people. And I'm like, man, y'all think we're out there doing evil stuff and taking evil stuff off? But we are actually exposed to like hexes and curses every day, such as when a black cat goes in front of your car, you automatically think that you have bad luck. Also, any Disney curse or anything like that is always based, the whole movie is based around that. We were just watching D23 and really excited. Snow White's coming out. And of course, her little curse was that she fell asleep and wouldn't wake up and had to have the kiss of her true love, blah, blah, blah. Also, I'm really excited that they're coming out with a villain's castle at Disney. So, Pat, why don't you tell them the difference between each one of those?
All right. Well, if we're looking at curses and hexes, those are the heavyweights. Those are the words that describe when you are really going to do harm. That's what the intention is. Something like a jinx is really just a gentle push, like you want somebody to trip or to embarrass themselves, or for their new shampoo to help make their hair fall out, something like that. That's a jinx, but it doesn't really go as far as true physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual harm. But before we get too deep in this, Ashley, I'd like to give a definition of what a curse means to me, and to me, and jinx is also, it falls under this, and to me, it's energy. It's energy that's been programmed to do harm. And so, so it's energy that has been focused on by the practitioner with intent. They may have used things like, a spell, including crystals, oils, herbs, whatever they use to make this come about. They may use puppets or dolls. There's so many different things and ways to do a curse, including, as we know, jars. But in the end, it's about the intent, it's about energy, and it's about pushing that energy with a purpose to do a specific thing. And in this case, it would be to do harm to another. Ashley, do you have a take on that?
I always say, like in the mountains, it's really bad to point and to spit. If you spit, then we're going to throw punches. It's really disrespectful. So, certain things that we take as being disrespectful is also a way of putting bad intent because a finger is, the easiest form of a wand. So, you do have that. Also, like it's the difference between how to do bad workings to someone. And some people believe that any spell that's put forth that is ill intended, that God will pretty much wipe it away, or whatever higher power you believe in, it has to be just to go through. That's also we always use different Bible verses, usually in the Appalachian. I don't necessarily, because I get really worried I'll mess that up, because in the mountains you never want to throw away a Bible. We got like 20 in there because of course everybody saw us and was like, we need to give them one. So I have not thrown away any Bibles, but there is, it's just a large melting pot of how you can go about a curse. Just even looking at someone and wishing ill intent and the evil eye. You have that in different cultures that you're kind of repelling any of that. Me, if I was to do, okay, so I did bad workings towards someone, and I always tell the same story. And I never want to do workings when my mind is heated or anything like that, because sometimes you get clouded with your own opinion and you don't see the whole atmosphere of what's happening. So I was like, I really want this person to pay for what they did, da da da. The good Lord willing, I'm still in here doing evil stuff. And I was like, I just want him to have to pay for the things that he has done. And I always tell the story that I was coming home from a cookout, and he was driving by in his car, and a deer came out of nowhere, hit the car, and dented it. I don't know if I've told you guys on this before, but he got out and was looking at his car, and I was like, "Yep, that's that spell work in there." So, and he also lost his job. I think I told this on the last one, but that was more of the negative workings that I have done. Pat, I know that we have personally talked about different ways that we could put negative onto people. And I do know that your energy work. Do you want to share any of those or save those?
Well, yeah. I mean, I am an energy worker, and what that means is I don't use most of the things that people usually use, like herbs and oils, all of that. I just project my intent. And yeah, when I was younger, I have done a few things that I regret because again, and I've described what I feel is a curse is that intent, that throwing of energy to manifest negativity for someone else. And I've done a couple of things. Once, when I was working in a factory when I was young, I was about 17 years old, and there was a woman who was she was a folder, what they call a folder. So she would take the curtains and fold them. But what she wanted to be was an inspector because they made a lot more money and they had a lot of prestige. And of course, because they're inspecting your curtains, everybody was kind of kissing the derriere of these people. And so she wanted that clout. And so I could not get one one curtain off of my machine. That woman was on me like white on rice, as we say in the South. And I could not get rid of her. She stood right there checking every curtain she folded. And so my production was just crashing. And when you have production crashing in a factory job, for you factory workers out there, you'll understand that means that you, number one, won't get your bonus pay. And number two, you'll be barely hanging on to a job, after a few months. So she'd done this for a few weeks. And I will never forget, I was so full of rage. I was so mad, and I had just had it. And she had another curtain that she was showing me that wasn't perfect. And I tilted my head and I looked at her and I focused my energy and I said one word, sick. And that woman never came back to work. That that was her
Either you
last day.
scared her or she got so sick she never came back.
Well, they
She's
said she got really sick, and it really bothered me later. Not right then, I have to admit. When I get mad, I'm a Scorpio, and we hang on to that. But years later, you kind of regret or have regrets of things that you may have done in the past or when you were younger, and that's one of them. And I will have to admit, I'm not going to. Some of them are a couple of dark situations, and I'm not going to mention them. But let me just say that curses are real, and there are people that can throw that energy, and so we have to be mindful of the fact that this isn't just a figment of our imaginations. If you have the ability to actually curse someone, that is a powerful energy. And so one of the questions I'm going to ask is, what are the ethical considerations, or are there ethical considerations of throwing a curse? What do you think, Ashley?
with that, I really, because it's hard, because of course TikTok is always, man, of course they take it to the ridiculous level. And that is why I talk about curses and hexes and jinx and things like that, but I'm reserved about it because I'm like, hold on a minute. They're just going to be like, oh, she didn't like my photo. I'm going to hex and curse her. You know what I mean? So I get irritated about it because I'm like, I can talk about this and really inspire people to do negative things, but then are they at home just a ball of negativity going at people for living their normal life? That's why I'm always like, you have to have the rational mind to do any negative workings. If someone is out there and I really think that they're doing, like, this is like the first thing that comes to my mind. I'm not saying go do this, but say there was a sex offender, I believe, hey, maybe if you want to do some negative magic, you go right ahead. But like if someone just cut you off in traffic, I think maybe you should reserve all your energy of your spiritual and magical essence to where it might be more useful. I mean, that's a lot of negative, and you're really holding yourself that much to actually push forward that. And any of that always comes back on you. The only thing that I would, if I feel people are doing more negative workings, it would be, of course, to see if there's any ties to them, spell work like that, to foretell that, and then mirror spells. How do you feel about the ethicalness?
Oh, I think that it's really a minefield. I truly do. And I've never told this before, so you guys are the first. I don't even think I've told you guys. But when I was younger, I was at a ball game, and I was supposed to pick up my step kiddos at that time, and it was 10 o'clock at night, and I had driven over 4 hours to pick the kids up, and they had been promised to be ready when I got there, that they would be ready. Well, when I got there, I found out that they had lied to me, and so the this relative comes over and laughs in my face about me sitting there another 3 hours. I mean, think about it. In 3 hours, it was going to be 1 a.m. By the time I got home, it was going to be 5 a.m. in the morning. So I'm mad. And I look at him because he's laughing at me. And I did the same thing, head down, eyes up. And I said, die. And a couple of weeks later, he found out he had terminal cancer, and he passed within 6 months. That's what I'm saying. You have to be really careful. And there's been a couple others, but my point is, now that when I got older, wiser, and more in control of, if you want to call it an ability, then I learned not to do that. Now, as far as ethical, it really wasn't ethical. I should not have pushed that energy. But there's all kinds of issues going on right now. Like, one of the issues I saw on TikTok, and this definitely has to do with ethics, is, can you curse children? My stance on that is absolutely not. And I know that they are souls, and I know that these souls have lived other lifetimes, but absolutely not. I don't care if they've gotten into your garden and pulled all your plants before they've come to fruition. I don't care if they painted something on your door. You cannot, in my estimation, you cannot do that because this is still a young soul in this lifetime. What do you think, Ashley?
So I think when children come involved, I don't have any kids of my own. I help raise one, but man, if I saw some kids out there doing some dirty stuff, I'd be like, I hope they get chicken pox. I think I might. Yeah, I think I might do something like that, but I wouldn't do anything that was so bad that it would ruin them. I just think that there should be a level of evaluation before. Because of course, like I said, like as soon as you take something off oven, it's going to be hot. Just like any argument or any situation, you're going to be mad. You're going to be hot mad, but let it cool down and see how it really is about. But like I said, I think with some children, I've been around some questionable children, and I'm like, man, I hope they get a little sick or something, a little cough. I'm not saying their whole life is going to end. I'm not saying, terminal cancer, but I'm like, I want them to get the measles, a finger blister, or something itchy. Like worms, our whole life, we were so scared of worms, and I hope they get worms. Occasionally, I'm like, you know what? You're irritating me. I just want an eye for an eye, irritation. That's what it is. Um,
I got to tell you, you mentioned children, and this is a little off of the subject a little, but I will tell you, and we know this: children are just souls, and who are living again in another body. And there is a cycle of life, and so I have always, when I've seen children, I always see like a white or a gold light. It depends on the child and how close their spirit is to divine energy. I met this one child. I am an older woman, obviously, and I'm a granny, a literal granny. And I will never forget, I met this little child, and she was sitting on a table. Her mother and her her granny was sitting there. And I looked at this child, and all of a sudden, it was like I'm an astral projector. So I'm like somewhere else. And I'm looking at this child, and she is not a child. She is an older woman, and she's what we call blousy. You can tell that she was very selfish. She, it was all about herself. It was about um, well, she was the center of her own universe. She drank heavily. She just didn't care. I mean, it was all about her and her wants and her needs, and just not a pleasant soul. And I'm staring at her, and I heard my spirit guide say, as clear as a bell, I heard spirit say, she has decided not to change. And I knew what that meant. It meant that she was going to live in this lifetime, and she was just going to be the same old blousy soul that was going to bring other people down with her. Well, it was like all of a sudden I could hear down a tunnel, and I heard her mother saying, don't you dare tip that over. And I saw this child, but it wasn't a child, it was a woman. She put her hand on this really big salt shaker, one of those grinders, and she started to push it towards the edge. And in the background, I heard, don't you do that. Don't you do that. And all of a sudden, I saw it like in slow motion fall off the table. And when it hit, it was like everything went back, and she was a baby again. And it was disconcerting. So I told them, I excused myself and said I had to leave. Well, I got another message, and I told the grandmother because it was actually an adopted child. Um, I'm getting ahead of myself, so let me back up. So after that, I happened to be visiting, and the adopted mother told me, she said, Pat, I think my house is haunted. And I said, how do you think so? And I was thinking, this is not good. And she said, well, I heard the little girl, and she was talking to someone in her room. And so I walked in, and she was in the geographical location in the middle of that room with her hands out and looking up. And she said, as soon as she walked in the room and saw that the child disappeared, it got very quiet. It was like the child was back to normal. It's like she lowered her head and everything was back to normal. And I told her the truth. I said, it's not the house that's haunted. It's her. She's bringing this energy. And it's not really a haunting. It's more like bringing negative energy into the house. Well, a little while later, I was told by the grandmother that the child was not allowed to go back to mommy and baby play dates. And I saw it just as clear as a bell. I said, there was a little girl there. I said, she had blonde hair. And I said, she pulled her hair, didn't she? Like hard, like handfuls. And she did. She pulled handfuls of hair out of that kid's hair. And I said, she was jealous of her hair. I mean, I just knew it. Well, there had been one prior incident. And the little girl had went over to a little boy. They had all had little boxes of juice that had been given to them. And so she went over with her box of juice, and it looked like she was giving the high five to this little boy. Instead of giving a high five, she knocked that kid down and took his apple juice. Yes, at the age of 4, she mugged another little boy. I mean, her first mugging. And what's
Don't judge too hard. I might have a kid like this, Pat. Okay.
Let me tell you, I don't think you will. No, you won't.
I hope mine does pick up roadkill and brings it home. I hope. I'll be like, that's my kid.
Well, that's magic. That's magic. That's using
magically weird. I'm hoping for a kid like that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I don't think you'd want a kid like this. But I will tell you that I told the grandma. I said, listen. I said, this energy, it's really malevolent. I said, there's going to be 3 people that will die very close in order, and due to this presence and this negative energy. And there were 2 people. The first was semi-expected, but it was still a surprise. The second was a shock. And before the third one happened, the little girl was actually adopted back into its original family with another family member. So it's really interesting, though, because, yeah, when I say you wouldn't want this type
I'm
of a child.
intrigued. What were her real parents like then?
I have no idea. I have
Oh,
no
bless
idea.
them. I
But
wonder
now
if
I
they're
will
just
tell
weird
you
as
this. No,
her.
she was an individual soul. It mattered not about what other people did. I'm going to tell you a truth about this. This happened. So she's with her dad, who's kind of a, he's a dad. So he forgot her car seat. So he buckles her into the regular seat belt, like dads, some dads would do, not all dads. So puts her in the safety belt, and they're driving down the highway, and he looks over and he sees her getting out of the buckled seat belt. And he leans over and he says, "You can't do that. Don't do that." And starts to buckle her back in, loses control of the truck, goes through a mailbox and hits straight on a building made out of stone. And of course, he was arrested because of endangering a child endangerment. She wasn't in her safety seat. But here's the thing: he, in his mugshot, looks like he was beat by 15 people. I mean, this man is all beat, 2 black eyes. I mean, he looks horrible. This child did not have a bruise on her, not the
Oh,
first bruise.
oh, good God.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm just getting back to playing devil's argument, advocate here, and saying that yes, we are individual souls, and we live, and the whole goal for most souls is to become better and better, and that at some point, we can go back to the source, and we don't have to keep coming back. The message with her was that she had chosen not to make a better soul, not to improve herself. She has actually chosen to be the same person that she has been. Unfortunately, she's also accumulated some very, very negative energy that is with her. We talk about ancestral gods, right?
yeah.
Well, she has gods that are not, let's put it, of the positive energy sort.
Yeah. I really
Uh,
think that goes into the past lives with you too, because like I have gotten a past life reading today, and or not today, but in the past I've had to talk about it today. But anyways, with unexpected relatives that stopped by. But anyways, I've actually had a past life reading, and I really wanted a glamorous past. I really wanted, like, everybody wants to say they were Marilyn Monroe or they were like Cleopatra. Mine, I was really let down, and it makes sense though. I mean, I was an Irish potato farmer, wasn't it? It was something like that, and my man left me, and I had an ugly idiot kid that I had to take care of, and it just makes so much sense now in my life. And in this life, I don't think I learned the lessons otherwise because I don't trust anybody. And shoot, Lord, man, I'm just like, that no, this ain't going, we ain't signing no paperwork. You know what I mean? So I'm telling you, past lives really have a lot to do with what frames you now at times. With that relating to hexes and curses, and the true nature of someone with psychology, you think nature versus like nature and nurture wise, right? And that really creates the personality. But to go down the psychological path of, well, it's, pseudoscience as well as the past lives frame you now, that probably could reflect on would you be more powerful with hexes because you've had a tortured past life or because you grew up tortured or things like that. You know what I mean? Because anyone who has struggles, and we always say this with Appalachian, their magic is more, I'm not saying they're better than everybody else because everybody thinks their brand is better, but you know what I mean? Like, usually witchcraft comes from struggles because we had to go to a different element to kind of get the righteousness. And to think about that with the Appalachian, they were judgmental, but we were too scared to go to police or authorities. So why wouldn't we curse the next person that would do us wrong? So it makes kind of complete sense about that. And like, to get a curse off you, I get asked that a whole bunch, as in, how do I get this curse off? I feel like I have a negative energy, things like that. You can always do a cleanse. You can always take a bath with Epsom salt and Reiki as well. Just imagine you're cleansing your whole body. And also, I always suggest putting, I know this is bad, railroad stakes in each corner of your property and running salt lines and things like that, as well as any jewelry and things. How do you feel about what would prevent? Oh, and also, I love mirror spells and things like that to reflect that energy. I think we talked about this last time as well. But what do you suggest about keeping them off of you, Pat?
Well, number one, always do protection. If you're doing any kind of spell work, if you're doing any kind of psychic or mediumship work, make sure that you do have some protection. You can do things like take a salt bath. You can take a rosemary bath. You can do smudge cleaning if that's your path. You can surround yourself. I do when I'm out reading. I always have certain crystals on the table. I focus on my own energy so that I put up a shield and I allow that shield to part, but only for certain people, for the people that I'm reading for. And then only so much. If I feel negative energy, I'll close that off, the heart center, especially as soon as I can. I do want to mention one thing. We talked about ethical considerations, and I meant to say this. And one of the biggest ones is the hex necessary, right? Is it something that has to be done? There's no other way around it. You've had a conversation, or is it necessary? Now, I can tell you that versus the best ones, and you know this, you mentioned are done with a lot of emotional, ballistic style of energy, right? The more emotional you are, because that's an energy that you can focus with intent and then throw it at someone. And so the more of that you have, yes, it's going to be a more powerful type of hex or curse. I'm going to ask a question. What do you think about any other safety precautions? Is there anything in particular that you do whenever you are thinking of doing a hex? And I know they're few and far between, and they are for me too. And like Ashley said, mirrors reflect. I do a karmic spell, which just throws the energy right back to the person.
So precautions, like I said, first off, you can always not be an asshole. That's always number one. Don't piss anybody off, and don't just be a butthole out of nowhere, because then there's no reason for anyone to do magic against you. So first that, and then for you not to piss someone off is difficult in itself, because it's kind of like, you could just be living your life and you're like, wow, they didn't like me. I don't understand that. So that's when it comes into the next part of what I was saying, as in if you feel something more negative or anything that could be about your atmosphere, that someone might be throwing the evil eye, jealousy, or anything like that, you do more Epsom salts, like I said, sage, cleansing yourself, and just some people believe that acknowledgement is a feeding of any of that. As in, you're like, oh God, I have a hex, oh, and you always feed it in that type of way, then it actually makes it more stronger. Some people believe, oh, I'm not going to pay attention to that and it won't happen. But it's really, people have different belief systems and different ways. But I can tell you right now, if I look at someone and I'm like, you know what? That finger right there looks like it has a questionable mole on it. Then all day long, you're going to be staring at that mole and you're going to think, I might have skin cancer. And you're going to Google it and you're going to freak out about it all week long till you can finally get a doctor to look at it. So hexes, curses, or anything like that is even worse, because you're like, I know she don't like me. And I know she wore some witchy stuff and some of them heavy metal band t-shirts. I know she's out there slinging it. So if you think that so much, you're going to bring negativity and anxiety into your life. And you could be putting that negative energy on yourself, to be honest. Because if I wake up in the morning and I'm like, damn, that trash man, and I'm angry at the trash man for everything that happens to me, then that's going to be feeding on to, I recognize every not, well, you're supposed to recognize your blessings, and that will put more positivity in your life. But if I'm focusing on all this negativity, it's going to be very obvious that I had a really negative day. And it could be pretty much just casual days. So, thinking about that atmosphere, as well as, of course, we're Reiki masters. I've actually read different accounts where someone was had cancer and they would go for Reiki. They were doing the medical procedure as well. Make sure you go through with that. But Reiki is really just to assist any of that. So they were going also to get, Reiki from this person. And the first time they had cancer, they really changed their mindset. They went towards the Reiki way. And I say that because Reiki is very positive. They want to believe they put positivity out in the world, that you can heal things. And it's all this that's really like you're just oozing positivity, healing the world, putting healing out, things like that. It really changes your mindset. So the person receiving Reiki, and they had cancer, and this was in a book that I've read about it, they actually, their symptoms went away and they were able to overcome cancer that time. And then they circled back around and they were like, I need Reiki again. It's came back. But their mindset was so negative that it was like they wouldn't receive Reiki in the correct way. And it's like their negativity became literal cancer on them. So that is just like a curse. If you keep on thinking more negative and you keep looking at someone and thinking, I know it's from them, you're putting negativity towards them, as well as anything that happens in your life. You're going to recognize it as being their power. So you're making them more powerful in your mind than really anything they could have even possibly thought about doing. Any spell or anything you do has a price. So say, for instance, I didn't like Jimmy down the corner, and I'm like, you know what? I hate him so much. I hate he goes bald. I hope he goes bald, and I hope all this negativity. And then that's going to bounce back to me, because what did Timmy ever do to me? No, or Jimmy, Timmy, whatever his name is. What did he ever do to me? I have to understand there's a price for what I do. So there's different ways to do these hexes and curses. If that's something, I believe an eye for an eye. So if something is more negative inflicted and I feel I'm in the righteous, I always have a loophole. If I'm right in this, make sure this goes through. My big thing is liars. I cannot stand a liar. That to me is so disrespectful, and it gets under my skin. So I knew someone was lying to someone in my family, and the worst thing, I'm very inventive, I guess. I always attack what I know would hurt them. As in, a liar tells lies because they want to be more important than what they are. The worst thing for a liar to do is their social group realize that they lie so much because it deflates their ego. So my spell work was that everyone saw the truth behind what they were saying. So don't just jump in there and say, I hope they die and get in a fiery burning wreck if you are going to do negative. If that's your flavor, then. But like I said, the one guy that really bothered me, my more negative was he loved his car. And I was like, I want that car to have a dent in it. And I'm fine. If somebody wants to, reflect that back and put a dent in my car, it's got a whole bunch anyways. But what ways do you think a loophole with any negative spell working if they happen to go down that line?
If someone does do a negative spell,
Yeah, how can they make it to where it wouldn't come back onto them, or maybe it would be just?
here's the way that I have always looked at this, that magic is neither black nor white. It's gray. It depends on the practitioner. Also, I'm not a Wiccan, and they operate, because it is a religion. They operate under what is called the threefold law, which means whatever you put back or out into the world, you'll get back 3 times. I think that we do or can accumulate karma, so it is something that we have to be careful about. But I also think that you can be an innocent soul that happens to have gifts, and you really don't realize that you're executing those gifts. You see what I'm saying? Like you have somebody who's young, and they're wishing bad on someone, but they don't see a pattern. They don't see the pattern until much later. Now, once you understand, then I do believe that it's up to the practitioner to begin to control their own abilities. And at that point, I do believe that we begin to accumulate, because I really don't feel, uh, and this may sound terrible, but I don't feel that I have accumulated any karma for that sort of thing, because I really didn't know what I was doing at the time. I was just angry. You see what I'm saying? Angry. But once I saw a pattern, it was like, oh, now I have to take responsibility. You see what I'm saying? In my magic and what I'm doing. So yeah, you just don't want to be, like you said, you don't want to be a prick. You want to be a good person. And so as much as you can, and become closer to source as much as you can in one lifetime. So yeah, it is a consideration. I think that the best thing to do always is just to push the energy back, whatever the energy is, because that's not your energy to begin with. Don't add your energy to it. You won't have to. If somebody is super jealous of you, if they are super mad with you, if they are just jerks, and there are people that just run around hexing, at every drop of the hat, like you said, because somebody cuts them off in traffic. They're wanting them, to have an accident. You see what I'm saying? So you learn as you grow in magic, as you grow as a spirit and as a human being, if you practice magic, to balance everything, right? So you're balancing things, and that becomes very important to most practitioners, and it's certainly been important to me. So having said all that, if someone has done great harm to myself or to a member of my family, and I go beyond their own energy
Yeah.
directed at me, and I use my own energy, if there is a balance in the universe, in other words, their great harm and my retaliation balances. You see what I'm saying? Because I have been greatly hurt by the actions of this person, then that is a balance in the universe. That is how I see that. Some people may disagree with that, but that is how I see that. And to me, the practitioner does not wear that particular karma.
That's a nice way to put it. I was sitting here thinking, and we always travel, we always talk, and we always have different things. And sometimes, like, talking goes into automation mode when you kind of, talk about something and you forget about instances you have been in. But when you were talking, I just start smiling because I realized there was a situation that I was involved with, and I'm not outing anybody that I was in a situation with. And there might have been some hexing involved, and it was because there was a person that really took advantage of someone and a lot of people. And it was really that we wanted to make sure their social media and their platform that they had been involved in, stop smiling. their platform had been taken away because we saw behind the curtain of, I said I wasn't outing anybody.
No,
Okay, but like we wanted to make sure that the recognition was where it was supposed to be. Not saying that they wouldn't, but it was, if it was in an ill-intended way, then their, not popularity, but their not wealth, they were supposed to, like, fade back into normalcy.
obscurity.
There you go. I was, but it was more so of that, and it was. I don't feel that that has reflected on me because I felt like that was more of just because I really saw the situations arise in this person, as in they they just took advantage of the platform they made for themselves, and it wasn't for the positive approach of it. It wasn't for helping other people. It was for the gain for themselves, and it was very. I have done workings like that one. Otherwise, I really get nervous about working with other people because intermingling your magic, anyways, with anybody, that is just right up there with sex. You don't want to mix too many people in that, because you don't know where they've been. You don't know their true intentions. You need to wear a magical spiritual condom. We're going to think of that, okay? Because it doesn't, whoever you mix your magic with, like I said, you don't know their intentions. You don't know their deep desires and things like that. So just make sure who you do, and especially darker magic. I would not. I'm very like I've been invited, and I'm like, oh, I got something to do that night, guys, and I will bow out, because I believe you have to make sure you're not just going with the crowd doing negative things just because it's the new cool in thing. Really have your own moral compass. If you don't feel it's something that necessarily needs to be punished by, don't put your energy in there. Don't mix it around, just so it's okay sometimes to be a solidarity witch and to not have to have all this magic to go with it, because a lot of people have a lot of magic in them and they don't recognize it. Just as you're saying, like, as in you went through life not knowing what you're doing. I was the same exact way, but I've also read studies, because well, not studies, but different exercises, because as you know, we teach classes and everybody's always like, how do you build your magic? How do you do this? How do you do that? One was they want you to go to a bar, or they want you to go to a crowded place and just sit there and look at someone, and in your mind focus on what you want them to do. As in, now me and Misty used to do this all the time. We didn't know what we were doing either. It was, I really want to go to the bar. It was setting your intentions in the early nights. And you're like, I really want to go to the bar and I want someone to call me pretty. Now me, I went straight forward. I was like, I want to go to the bar and I want a gay guy to tell me how pretty I am, because that to me was higher quality, because they recognize quality. Drunk men in a bar will tell everybody they're pretty. So randomly, every time we go to a bar, there would be some attractive gay man that would come up and tell me how pretty I was. And I'm like, yes, like that would be my little wish for the night. But anyways, to practice, or not practice, but recognize your little power, you would go into a crowded place, like I said, and just in your mind think, I want them to order this drink, and see if you have any power over that person, and see what kind of drink they would do. Another instance me and Misty did to see if we had anything was we paid to go to this one psychic that was all over the radio. She was going to a bar to do readings for people. Now we were in this line and we sat right next to her, right? So all the people in the line, this is also profiling. It's terrible. Don't profile, but use your intuition. I was sitting there, and in the line, me and Misty would be like, I bet she's going to ask about this, and I bet this one's going to ask about this. And when they would get up to the lady, we would be sitting right next to her, and that would be exactly what she was asking for. So you just have to be aware of your surroundings and see how good you are. Another fun trick me and Misty would do is we'd go to a bar, and we'd sit higher up than everybody else. We'd be listening to music, and we would see people, and we'd be like, that one is going to hit on this one. As the night goes on, they get a little bit of that liquid courage, and damn if they wouldn't. And we would see that. So would that be, it wouldn't be us, nudging them, but it was really to try to foretell what was going on. Also, like if they had a partner, but they weren't with their partner, it would be like, this is what their partner would look like. And damn if they wouldn't walk over. So there's fun ways to test and to kind of get your confidence up before doing anything. So Pat, you've mentioned that you have been in situations you're like, oh no, when I looked at the patterns, when you were a wee early witch psychic person, what were ways that were fun little tests you did for yourself and you're like, oh man, I mean, I know that you came from a very magical family and things like that, and you were kind of vetted in that type of way. But was there ever a time that you were like, I really got to test this, and kind of go through like that?
Well, my reason, as I say, was different, and so it was I don't know, just accept it, and I would watch my grandmother, like I said, and my mother, and I would listen to them. I love to listen to the older ones, and they just seemed to be so full of wisdom. And if I had questions, I could go to them, and they would answer those questions for me. I No, I haven't. But I was raised so differently. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it was just accepted as part of who you were. And we lived in a really, really haunted house, and it was just basically a tar paper shack. But what made it kind of unique is that my grandma and my grandpa, uh, they built it out of lumber from the most haunted house in Spring Creek, West Virginia. It was called the Sam Hannah Holler House. And so they took that, cannibalized it, and then put some of that into this house. And there was all kinds of things that happened at the Sam Hannah Holler House. I mean, people would talk about seeing a woman all of the time. There was a little boy there who would constantly play with the children. I mean, it was known for being haunted. And so, I'll give you one example. We had what we called the room, and nobody in the family besides Granny wanted to sleep in the room. I mean, the kids, like, we'd sleep outside before we slept in the room. And so it was actually a bedroom. And I had a boyfriend, and he came in from another state. And I told him, I said, "Well, you have a choice. You can sleep in the room." And I had told him about how radically haunted this room was, or you can sleep on the couch. Oh, I'm sleeping in the bed. And I'm like, well, okay. So he slept in the room. The next morning, I came trotting through the living room, and he was 6'4". His feet were like hanging off the end of the couch. And I looked over at him and I said, "It got you, didn't it?" I said, "Oh my God, Pat." He said, "I woke up in the middle of the night and that bed was tossing back and forth until I was almost flipped right out of that bed." I said, "Yeah," I said, that room has a tendency to do these things. So that was my childhood. I mean, that's how I grew up. And so it was just accepted, and it was different. It was definitely different than most people's raisins would say. So it was different.
It was odd, me growing up. We also, I think it really definitely builds character when you're in a haunted house because you're like, holy crap, there's something else out there. We always handed down houses throughout the family and things like that. So our hauntings, it wasn't accepted. And that's the funny part because with our haunteds, we were like, if there was something that happened, they're like, "You're crazy. You've been going. You're crazy. You need to go to church." And that was probably the pipes, and that was this and that and the other. There's a logic reason behind this. Now, mind you, we lived in one house, and late at night we heard children laughing, and we didn't have no damn kids, and we're out in the middle of the country, so it was quite frightening. And I think that I had living in a haunted house, not knowing you have gifts, and trying your best to explain what was really happening was really it was interesting. I remember Misty had this one house, like I said, and it was dirt cheap rent. Of course, that's always that's the ones that are tortured are the ones that are dirt cheap rent. I think it was like $500 a month, which is unheard of now, but. Of course, it came with a catch. There was always an attic area, and at this place, I would come and stay with Misty. And this place was pretty damn. It was scary. For some reason, it had a cellar room, and in this cellar room, it had a one-way mirror. Like when you looked in from the house, and it would be in this kitchen. You would look through, and it would be a mirror. But when you went to the cellar right around the corner, and you looked in, you could see in the kitchen. So someone could break in the house, stand there, and watch us in this mirror. It was freakier than crap. It also had bugs that would randomly show up in our sink, and it would come out of the plumbing. It was scarier than crap over there. Also, like there was writing going up the wall or up the stairways, and I always thought it was freaky. But I mean, I guess it was nice for someone. It was, "I hope you enjoy your stay and have a happy time." It was writing on this, like you know how the step is right there, and I was just like, God, that's creepy. But every time I would stay there, I would always sleep on the couch and a really long time because, like I said, this was not accepted. You were okay. There's a logical reason, and if there isn't, then you're crazy. So I slept with the lights on until my 20s because I was scared crapless. I was like, my stigmatism's going crazy, guys. Like, I'm like late at night, scared. I just would be laying on my sister's couch when she stayed at this one place, and I would be staring at the doorway, just waiting for something to come around the corner. And I remember sometimes I would be so scared to go to sleep. That's how I would fall asleep. I would rather stare at that doorway. And so there was times I'd actually cry because I'm like, oh God, it's coming tonight, whatever it was. And I'd be half asleep. So those are it. It it's different when you live in a haunted house and people are like, oh, mine's haunted. Oh, shoot, this and that and the other. But when you don't have anybody that you can actually like talk to about this and they don't like usher it away as in logicality, then it could be scary. But like I said, we would have illogical situations that we would try to make logical. Like one time, we locked ourselves out of this house. So I'm like, well, shit, we're gonna have to get in this house. Now, mind you, my mom like lived like 15 minutes down the road because we all live on this damn street. Because family sticks together on farm. So she was renting this house and the door was locked and I had to break in this house. Now, mind you, I don't remember any lights or any TV being on. And I kicked open this door for me and my sister to go in there. And the whole house was black. And then all of a sudden we started hearing creepy ass music. Now, mind you, I busted in the door of the living room. And all of a sudden it was the scariest damn music you've ever heard in your life. And I'm like, are you is this real right now? Like we're both looking at each other because we're standing on this porch, which by the way, constantly had snakes and frogs on it. Like they would just randomly be sitting there. So we busted in this and the music started playing. And then all of a sudden, a second later, like TV credits start coming through. So it was the TV that was randomly at the correct time, right before the credits rolled and the music was going. That's how we busted in this house. And we did not leave anything on. Another time, like we would randomly have a frog that would just sit in the living room. Now I know we're in the Appalachian, but we ate frogs sitting in Appalachian. And this frog every summer would just come and sit in the room. And we're just like, there he is again. There's our little friend. And we put him somewhere else. There was a crawl space under this house. And there was no way we would get under that crawl space, right? And it was under this scary ass stairwell. One time, randomly, there was a shoelace hanging out of it. And I was like, how did a shoelace get? And we've been living here for years. So it freaked me out. And I'm like, this is how I'm going to get sucked down into the depths of hell under this house. So I took a fork. Now, I'm a teenager. And I'm like, well, there ain't no such thing as ghosts. And I'm trying to tell myself that. And I took a fork and stabbed this shoelace and pulled it. And then it sucked back into the under the floor. And also we had a shack. Now this is normal in the Appalachian. Like I said, a random shack. They said, yeah, the phone sometimes will ring. Don't answer it. And we're like, what? So damn sure enough, randomly the phone would ring out there. It was an old, wall phone or whatever. It would ring and it wasn't hooked up. Now these were all things that we somehow lived through and was just like, oh, it's nothing. Birds would constantly like fly into the windows and break their necks, which is a horror. All these things are horrible signs. Frogs, snakes, birds, like breaking their neck. Like these are all. If I went to a place like this, I'd be like, this place is haunted. You got an angry spirit. This and that and the other is happening. But I constantly denied what was going on. We all did. So it's demolished now, but oh my God, it would have been a minefield of like, because it was pretty active. And like I said, it's probably very different to be welcome to that. And it's a beautiful thing because children, if a kid comes up and says something, you automatically dismiss it of imagination. So to have that, Pat, was a very beautiful thing. And I think that made you into the strong, powerful being that you are now.
Well, you're pretty powerful yourself, and I'm thrilled that we're doing this show. I think that we've got a lot to offer our listeners, both our personal experiences and also just our knowledge. And one thing I would like to mention on this whole idea of reversing a hex, the practitioner who originally gave the hook, or gave the hex, or created the spell, that is the most powerful way to get a spell off of you, the fastest way, okay? Because they know what they did, and they can reverse that spell. They know what to do. Where everything else we offer really is protecting yourself from the outcome of the spell or the hex, which is, of course, to do harm to you. So I just wanted to add that too. And yeah, there's so much with hexes. I mean, there's different types of hexes, and I'm going to go through these. I've got them written down because I have no memory. And then Ashley, comment on anything you'd like. But we have protection hexes. We have bonding hexes, and I'm not going to define that because Ashley can help us with that. Revenge hexes and transformational hexes. I will mention that one, which are crafted to induce significant changes affecting a person's conduct our mindset. So say you've got a husband and he's a bad alcoholic. A transformational hex or curse is something that he doesn't want to do, right? He doesn't want to give up alcohol or drugs or whatever his vice may be. But this actually could be a type of hex that that can be, because I would say this is spell work is what I'm thinking about. But say if you want to do something really harmful, you want to mess with someone's mindset, say, or their emotional, say they're very sensitive, and you want them to emotionally go over the edge, then that would be in the hex. I was thinking more of the spell work in the beginning, but yeah, if you wanted to set someone over the edge, transformational work would do that. Okay, you could even do something like have them see energy. You could actually curse them or hex them so that negative energy would come to them and reveal itself. They could suddenly be able to see some of this things that they haven't been able to do before, or you could give them feelings of anxiety and stress, which, by the way, is one of the ways that you can tell if you are hexed or cursed. Ashley, what are some other things that people could look for if they're feeling hexed or cursed?
Just that, like I was saying earlier, like, okay, maybe a few little inconveniences is okay, but I mean, if you just wake up and you just feel like, oh my God, this is the worst day of my life, I feel horrible about everything, and like depression will sink in of things that you used to like doing. If that's taken away from you and you're kind of like, I hate doing all this, I don't even feel like talking to anybody. Now, of course, there's logicality of that will come, and as in if you have social anxiety and you want to pull away for a little bit, if it doesn't lift off a few days, and maybe it's just not your mood, maybe it's not your chemical balance or anything like that, go to like repelling that and taking that off of you. We talked about binding, like hexes or spells or curses. Curses sometimes will last your whole like family line. So watch out for what you do. I mean, I get that there's this one asshole, but don't curse his whole family line for one. I always like to do spell work more so, as in like the revealing, like I was saying. Binding, it would be okay. Sometimes love spells could be a binding curse, as in, say, when you're young, you were absolutely in love with old Ron. I don't know. And he is the best thing ever. Well, of course, the adrenaline when you first meet this person will overtake you, and you think he is the best thing ever. That's the stages of love. When you first get with someone, you think you have so much in common. But really, it's you depicting what you want them to be. And usually that's why relationships last. New ones won't last longer than 3 months, because that's when the excitement in the honeymoon stage, as they say, kind of rots away. So, say you're doing a love spell and you're like, I want him, Ron, to love me forever, no matter what. Now, say Ron's an alcoholic or a drug user. That could be damn well very a curse for you. Like, after those 3 months wear off and your excitement of being with him actually happens, then you're stuck with Ron, not Ron imagination of you. Also, you can bind someone as into a job they don't like. Make sure that they always have that job to where it would be hard for them to get money or get a raise, but they have to stay there because they have no other options. There's different ways to go about it. Herbs and things like that, you can look into that. Also, Appalachians like to use jars, and they'll put things like their own urine, nails, rose thorns, anything negative, glass shards. They will put it into that, and they'll bury it places. So there's a lot of ways to go about it. Another way is to, how do you identify your subject that you want to do ill harm on or whatever. The internet is a wealth of knowledge, as in you could take a picture of them and use it for however you want. Also, dirt from how they're walking, where if they walk in front of you and there's dirt, usually that was more in the old time days, but anything like that, you see the craft, like I've said before, their hair, any marking that represents them. Some people use little pop-it dolls and they make them look like them. So there's different ways you can represent your target. But like I said, hexes and curses, they are, just make sure, like I constantly say this over and over, because of course you always have that bad person, like we mentioned, that kind of takes it too far. There could be family curses, like we said, but a hex or spell work, I like to call it that. I did spell work on this person because they weren't doing things right, because I don't want the whole family to, deal with what I put on them. What are the other ones that you were talking about, Pat?
Let's see. Protection hexes. In other words, if someone has set up protection, you can hex that, okay, to bring it down. So just understand that if somebody is very good at this, they probably won't have to do that. But if they feel that there are, the protection is being added to this person that's starting to bring their hex down, so to speak, then they can hex the protection itself. And then revenge hexes. You mentioned that earlier with the car, which is really
I'm very,
yeah,
I'm
it's
all
really
about revenge. I am not an offensive, I'm a defensive. Okay. I'm like, they got to do something to me and I'm going to be damn mad for a few days anyway. But if I'm still mad and I feel like he's still being disrespectful, that's what
yeah.
I'm going to do. Like, I'm
Well,
that type of person, but everybody has a different flavor and things like that. I am more of, like I said, a defensive, negative spell worker. We're going to say that.
well, I'm definitely defensive too. I mean, the couple of times that then I realized what was going on. I'm like, you know what? I'm seeing a definite pattern here, and I've got to start owning this. But here's another thing: generational curses. Since we mentioned that is usually done when there is so much energy involved. For instance, somebody about to be burnt at the stake would have all of the angst of, about they're about to lose their lives. I look like alfalfa. There's
I can't
alfalfa.
see it well. I think it adds personality. You like, woo, that magic that got me.
But say you're about to, to be hung or burnt in 1692, and it's a lie because you yourself are not a what you think is a witch, but you're a very spiritual person and you have a lot of energy that maybe you've never done this before, right? So what I'm saying, you might be a natural born witch and didn't even know it, but whether you were or whether you weren't, you look at your accuser and you have so much hate in your heart, so much despair in your heart, and you look at that person and you narrow the energy and you place that not just on the person, but on generations to come. It's like a generational curse. And I'm going to give you an interesting example real quick. If y'all have ever heard of the Tecumseh, sorry, curse, or it's also called the Curse of Tippecanoe. They were having a battle, the Battle of Tippecanoe, and Chief Tecumseh was, who they were fighting against. And of course, they were victorious. I'm talking about, I don't want to use the word colonizers, but the English/Americans. And it said that Chief Tecumseh, cursed us. And after that, every 20 years, we would have a president that would die. And almost, I mean, it's almost 100% up until, I think, Kennedy, that every 20 years, a U.S. president would die. How interesting is that? And that's a type of generational curse because we were cursed for generations to lose a leader every 20 years.
I thought you were going to say diabetes. I'm like, God, they got us. We all got diabetes as Americans. I thought you were going to say that. I was like, God, that's powerful. But there are like random little superstitions about the White House, even that if you see a black cat, there's going to be apparently that walks across that it's supposed to be like bad luck that comes to the nation. And it's random things. Actually, if you look into jinx and curses, we, like I said, overlook it. One is the Hope Diamond. It looks kind of like the one off Titanic, but everybody that's came into contact with this diamond has died. Even the male person, their dog actually hung itself so much as the package was just at the door of this person. So the mailman killed themselves. The Hope Diamond is a really big thing because they believe that they've taken it out of a god statue. I'm not sure which one, but that is one. Mummies. We always think that's cursed and things like that if you open a mummy's tomb. But where is there other ones? Always.
I was going to tell you. I got to tell you my favorite while you're thinking of it. In 1945, there was a man, and he wanted to take his pet goat to a game in Chicago, to the Chicago Cubs.
So, I have goats. It makes complete sense.
So he was going to bring his goat in, and they told him that he could not bring his goat in. And he cursed the Chicago Cubs, and they had all kinds of trouble, including not winning any tournaments for years.
The goats I have drive me damn crazy. I'll tell it. And if I could take them to a Chicago game and set them right, I would. Those goats have personalities. I'm just letting you know. I have one called Wraith, and he will like look at me sideways and like stand on his hind legs. I can understand it.
Well, in our next show, we're going to have a guest on, aren't we? I think next time. And we're really looking forward to that. And we will let you all know who that guest is. So you can be expecting that. And we have some things coming up too, don't we, Ashley?
Oh, good stuff, I think.
Oh, good stuff. Yeah. Gettysburg. We're going to be up in Gettysburg and actually doing we're contributing to paranormal research on this. We're doing a psi, and that's psychic test. We're going to do a pre-test and a post-test. And what we're going to be doing is giving psychic modifications, if you will, through hypnosis and through Reiki. And we'll be doing that before the post-test. So basically, you'll be taking a psychic test using the Zener cards before we do the hypnosis and the Reiki, and then we'll be doing a post-test to see if there's any difference in performance between the before and after. So we're excited about that. And Ashley?
It is super awesome. Alex is such a nice person. She had us on our show that we were talking about that as well. And there's going to be so many exciting panels that day. I'm like, oh my gosh, these are a whole bunch of smart people going about this. Ours, I am exceptionally excited about because it's kind of like Ghostbusters when he held up the cards and he was trying to guess that. But this is enhanced as in Reiki and the hypnosis. This is a different thing that like Pat hasn't even seen and I haven't seen. So I'm super excited about that going forward. And so if anybody's in the area, they should definitely come down and be a part of this because it's going to be a whole report afterwards, isn't it?
Yeah, there's actually going to be a journal, paranormal journal, research journal published, and we are going to be a part of that. And the results of our experiment will be a journal article. So we're excited about that. Yeah, and definitely a call out to Alex Matsuo. She's one. She and I think another group are putting on this particular event in Gettysburg. So excited about that.
And we also have the obvious Scarefest coming up, and that is always my favorite because I get to see all the costumes. An adult person does not get to dress up as much as they should. And I just get excited when people do cosplay. And I'm like, this is like Halloween for me. I could shop for horror attire and not horror or on there. OR. But you get to actually like shop for things like that and all the oddities and things. And then also you see people dress up. And on Sunday, they get the children to come around and the vendors hand out candy. So, I mean, it's just an experience. I look forward to it every year. So,
And I think we're doing Hexes and Curses this year. And for the first 100 that show for our presentation, they're going to receive a little spell back. So we're excited about that too. So yeah, come on down. Scarefest is always amazing. And a big thank you to Wes Forsyth for producing this show. He's always a joy.
But I guess we will see you guys next time at the same place, same location. We love you so much. Thank you for toying in. Thank you for toying in. Bye.
Peace out.